The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. I'm very excited to have a good-sized crowd here on the call and have a really great opportunity to have a really informative speaker to talk to you about music therapy and the connection that that has with music and memory. So to get started, I want to once again kind of review all of this data again, all this information. Again, our webinars are all being recorded, and that's for the purpose of being able to make these available to everybody afterward. There are some music and memory facilities that we're working with that aren't able to be here, and so that gives them that opportunity, or you the opportunity to show it to additional staff or review it yourself at a later date. So make sure that you're aware of that and know that we're recording today's. We do want to take questions, any that you have for any of the folks on the call today. So please either put your question in the chat box, as you see here on this diagram, and we'll get to those toward the end of our presentation today, or when we come to the end of our presentation to the question and answer period, you can raise your hand by using the little hand icon and clicking that. We'll then be able to unmute your line and we can talk some more about whatever your question or issues are then. So wanted to just welcome again to the webinar. We have myself on the line and one name of Rachel Norman. She's going to be the primary speaker today. She's going to talk about music and memory and music and therapy and some very, very interesting things. It's a great resource and has a lot of good information. Then Stephanie Hoffman is also on the call today, as she has been, and she's with Music and Memory. She'll be able to answer any questions that you have about music and memory that maybe you need to talk with somebody from that organization about that maybe I can't answer. And so it's another great opportunity to ask any of us questions, either myself or Rachel or Stephanie at the end of the webinar. To give you a little bit of an update on the project and where we're at, really all of the 30 facilities we believe have been through the certification training. As far as I know, that was true. We had a number of folks most folks did that in April. We still had a few other people in May that needed to complete their training then, and I believe that happened. If there's anybody out there that hasn't, that's not happened, please let me know, because we need to make sure that we get you registered for another upcoming certification training class. I know there was some confusion about who had and who hadn't, and sent an email to a number of facilities that I didn't have on the list as having attended, and I think we've worked out all of those issues and have that correct, the list pretty well correct now. We do have a little bit of reporting requirements. As you recall, there's a reporting report that's due on a quarterly basis from the 30 facilities that we're working with. And the next one is due before our next webinar. It'll be due June 15th. So I'm going to ask you to think about that and make sure that whoever's responsible for getting that report done knows that and that we have get that to us by the 15th. We have starter kits pretty well delivered. I am aware that we don't have them all delivered in the Wichita region. So if you're from out that direction, and in that our regional ombudsman's region, that includes the Wichita area, we do not have all of them delivered out there. So you may not. It is possible you don't have your equipment yet, but we should have those delivered in the next week or 10 days. So look for that to happen shortly. And then, as always, know that we're there to give ongoing support. We continue to have these webinars on a monthly basis. Our regional ombudsmen are there for support, to ask questions. If you have questions about it, you can give them a call or talk to them and see if they can either answer the question or direct you to someone who can. If you haven't gotten into the community, the Care Community website, really encourage that. That's a really, really great resource with lots of good information on it, so I encourage that. Back again, I got a slide in case you don't remember. Whoops, back one. What that quarterly report looks like. This is kind of a screenshot of the top half of it. So it's really just this information, those 3 pieces of information, the percentage of your residents who are receiving an antipsychotic medication, the percentage of your long-term stay residents who are self-reporting moderate or severe pain, and the percentage of your long-stay residents who have symptoms of depression. And so we needed that. You're welcome to, if you've got your form where you filled this out the first time, the first quarter, you can just add to it and then fax that to us or email it or send it by snail mail or any way that you want to do that. If you need another copy of the form, email me. I'll get it to you. It's also available on our website, so we are not picky how we get the information. We just need the information for the reporting requirements that we have back to KDADS who are the folks who gave us the grant money. So we've got those reporting requirements and just really need your help in getting that data so that we can get that in. So that's really all I have about the project. And again, toward the end of our webinar, if there's folks that have questions about the project and need to ask me some questions, we'll certainly answer those. But right now, I'd like to turn this over to Rachel and let her talk about her work and give you some insight into music therapy and its connection to what we're doing. So, Rachel, are you made you an organizer? I'm not seeing your presentation. Can you share your screen again?
I'm not seeing an option for that.
Let me find mine.
You make her a presenter?
Yeah, I've made her a presenter. I've made her an organizer, actually. Just make her a
Maybe I'll change myself too. There we
There
go.
you go.
That should do it.
Sorry about that.
That do it?
There you go.
All right. Okay. So you should just see the PowerPoint slides right now. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm really excited to talk with all of you. There's my picture there in the corner. My name's Rochelle Norman, and I live in the Kansas City area now. I have a music therapy company here, and have been doing music therapy for a long time. So music with older adults is really my passion. It's how I have chosen to spend my life. So I'm really, anytime I get to talk to elder care professionals about music, I get excited. So I'm excited. Music, music, music. See? 3 exclamation points. That's how excited I am. Now, this is my map of Kansas here, and Kansas is my home state. I live across the river now in Missouri, which my high school self would be very upset about. But here are all the places that I have lived in Kansas. I was born over here in Goodland. I spent grade school in Lakin, Kansas, west of Garden City. I went to high school in Wichita.
Rachel?
I went out of state for college and then ended up back in Newton, Kansas, lived in Anthony, Kansas. And then I've got Hayes marked up there because I spent a lot of time in Hayes when I was in high school. I went to band camp there every year. And then my grandparents lived in the Oklahoma Panhandle, just south of Liberal. And so they're kind of in that rural southwestern Kansas area. In fact, they always went to the hospital in Liberal. So the state of Kansas, I have a big heart for the state of Kansas as well, especially the rural parts of the state where so many of the older adults that were there when I was growing up are living now and where they're spending the last years of their life.
Rachel,
So I wonder,
could I interrupt a second? We're not, your slides haven't advanced on our screens.
oh, weird.
We're still seeing your opening slide.
I think what you might need to do, Rachel, is put it into play.
That's what I did.
Okay. It's just showing sort of your outline. There we go.
Slideshow, view slideshow.
Well, I suppose you could just advance them from there. People will be able to see it.
That's working, I guess.
Yeah.
Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
You see a map?
Yep. We see the map of Kansas.
Okay.
Yes,
I didn't do anything differently.
We see lots of stars where you used to live.
There you go. So this is my map of Kansas here. So I wonder if anybody is in the chat box, if you'd be able to say where you are. I don't know if anybody is attending by computer, but I would be interested to see where people
Where
are.
everybody's located? Okay.
Yep.
That'd be cool. So if you want to just put in the chat box the city where you're from, where you're at. We're seeing it in the question box, but that works too. Can you see that, Rachel, or is that only accessible?
Oh, yep.
Yep, can you see that? Gossel and Attica and somebody that went to Bethel.
Okay, Bethel, yeah, that's in Newton. Okay, great. So I know that Barbara told me that we cover quite the whole state, really, with the folks who are in this program. So that's really exciting. I'm really glad to hear that. As I said, well, I'll tell you a little bit more about my background, but I've been involved in the music therapy profession for a number of years now, and a couple of years back, a committee that I was on did a survey of all the board-certified music therapists in the state of Kansas, and we made a map where we marked all the counties where music therapists are living and working. And as you might suspect, most of us are concentrated in the Kansas City area, which is close to a couple university programs, the Wichita area. Then there's one person in Dodge City, there's one person in Hayes, and there's one person in Emporia. So there are large parts of the state where there aren't any music therapists out there serving older adults. That's why I was really excited to hear about the Music and Memory Program being in the state of Kansas through the Ombudsman's Office, because I know that you all are getting some tools to bring music to your meaningful way all across the state, even though there aren't music therapists there that can help you with that directly. So I'm really excited about that, and being able to speak with you today and share some of the knowledge and expertise I have as a music therapist to answer some of your questions and to give you some tips and some ideas that will help your programs to be successful. Okay, I'm going to change slides now, so let's see if this works. Just say academic background. You guys see that?
Nope. See a map. I don't know why.
All right. Well, good news is you'll get all these slides in your email later. So if they stay behind, that's inconvenient, but it's okay. Nothing is terrible. So I want to tell you a little bit about my background as a music therapist. Since there aren't a lot of music therapists around in parts of the state, chances are you've never run into a music therapist before, or maybe you've just known somebody who went off to college and never came back. I've heard people talk about that. So music therapy it's an academic program. I got my bachelor's of music in music therapy degree. I got that back in 2003 from the University of Evansville. After we do the Bachelor of Music degree, we have to complete a 6-month-long clinical internship to qualify to take the board certification exam. Then we take a board exam, and that qualifies us as a board-certified music therapist. And then, just like any other health professional, we have to do continuing education to keep up our credential. I also continued on with my academic training to get a Master of Arts in Music Therapy from St. Mary of the Woods College. I did a distance learning program with them. And then I actually am on the faculty now for St. Mary of the Woods College, and I teach in the music therapy distance equivalency program, so training new music therapists through that program now. Professionally, I wanted to come back home to Kansas when I got my board certification. I thought for about a week about staying in San Diego when I was doing my internship because it was January and the sun was shining and it was really pretty there. So I thought about staying, and then but not for too long because Kansas is home, and so I wanted to come back where my family is and just where it feels like home. So I moved back to Newton, Kansas, and there weren't any music therapy positions there, so I started my own practice, started offering music therapy programs in nursing homes and hospices in Newton and in Wichita and that surrounding area. I was there for 4 years and then got married and moved with my husband and his job to the Kansas City area. So I've been in Kansas City since 2008. My business is Soundscape Music Therapy, or Soundscaping Source. Soundscape Music Therapy is my local music therapy practice, and another music therapist and I provide music therapy programs in nursing homes and with hospices. We do senior living centers, places like that. We go and provide music therapy sessions, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. And then in my role, I also do a lot of teaching and presenting and consulting with elder care professionals, with other music therapists, with elder care organizations to help with making music programming successful. So I do a lot of presenting at conferences. I have a webinar series that I do through my website, and I'll tell you later about how to get information on that. I have a course on Reliance Learning. I'm getting ready to do a webinar for Leading Age Kansas. I'll tell you more about that later. So I really like to get out there and share what I know, share the experiences that I have as a clinician that all of you can use in your communities, in your day-to-day caregiving practice with the seniors that you're serving. Okay, if I click on the third icon, that's what I've been doing. Yeah. If I see this now, it says, what is music therapy?
Yep, that's what we see now.
Now it's working? Okay.
Good, yay.
Hopefully the slides will advance. That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Okay. So music therapy then, Barbara asked me to talk a little bit about some of the differences, the distinctions between music therapy and music and memory. Because we know that music is a good thing, that it helps people, and we know that music listening is therapeutic and that it's helpful. But music therapy, that term is for a clinical practice, a clinical profession. So music therapy is a clinical process that's guided by a credentialed music therapist or board-certified music therapist. So this is something that we do in a relationship. Therapy happens during musical interactions in a session as part of a therapeutic relationship. So by definition, we're talking about something that happens in the presence of a music therapist. Kind of like physical therapy happens when a physical therapy provides some interventions, or occupational therapy happens when an occupational therapist provides interventions. In practice, what this means is when I come in as a music therapist to provide music therapy, I'm doing a lot of music making with the person or people that I'm working with. So when we come into a nursing home, for example, we might have a group of 10 to 12 people, and we have goals in mind for them. Often in a senior living setting, those goals have to do with socialization and reminiscence and emotional expression, sometimes environmental stimulation or awareness of the environment. Those are all common goals. And we structure some music experiences around those goals. So, for example, this week in my area, probably in your area, it's been a little rainy, so I might have a session that's built around the topic of weather. So we start with a welcoming song that we use every time, and then maybe we'll sing Singing in the Rain, or Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Then maybe I'll play a recording of one of those songs, and we'll do some movement to music, or we might get out some drums and some tambourines and play instruments along with the music. And during the session, I'm watching what the residents are doing and what they're reacting to, and maybe what they're not really reacting to, what's not sparking anything for them. And I'm adjusting how I present the music and how I present these different music experiences to bring people into the music and to make sure everybody's engaged at a level that is appropriate for them and comfortable for them, and really just to bring everybody into the music. What happens most of the time is that people become more engaged, they become more interactive with each other. You see a lot of smiles being shared, a lot of stories being shared. Even people who are very quiet, maybe who don't have speech anymore, or don't have a lot of movement yet, we might see an increased level of awareness. We might see eye contact. We might see people tapping their toes or raising their head up when they normally don't do that on a day-to-day basis. And so in that space of that music therapy session, a lot of really cool musical interactions are occurring. And that's what I'm there to facilitate, what I'm there to provide. Now, sometimes music therapy sessions are targeting even more specific goals for specific people. So I work in hospice as well. And I'm thinking of a particular hospice patient that I had a few years ago who was a man that had a degenerative motor disorder, kind of similar to Parkinson's, but with different symptoms. And he had been a skilled musician. He played the accordion, a small version of the accordion, and he had played violin and piano. He really enjoyed opera music. He really didn't enjoy the other music activities that happened in the community where he was living because they were all very popular music oriented. He really did not like Elvis. There was a lot of, it just wasn't his kind of music. So when I came in as another trained musician. I happened to play the oboe as well as piano and guitar, and so I'd bring my instruments in and we would play. I would play music for him, or we'd talk about music. He happened to have his accordion and violin in his closet, even though he wasn't able to play either one of them anymore. So one time we got his violin out of the closet, and I tuned it for him, and then plucked a little bit. That's about all I can do on the violin. But it was really valuable for him just to bring that instrument out of the closet and to share it, to have it in the same space between him and me, two musicians sharing this moment together. So that is something that happens in music therapy. He was dealing with some particular issues related to depression and anxiety and grieving over the loss of his physical function. And in that musical relationship, I was able to help him address some of those issues, or to help him express some of the needs that he had, and to meet some of those emotional needs that he was expressing. So that's music therapy. It happens during the musical interaction, the process between a resident, a client, and a credentialed music therapist. Okay. Do you see the whole slide now?
No, it's still that outline on the side view.
Oh boy.
There. No. It's like it doesn't want to stay there.
Do you see more?
It like briefly tried to go to the full slide, and then it's back to showing the outline and the center. And it hasn't, we haven't moved a slide either if you were trying to move.
Okay. All right. That's really strange.
It is.
Okay. Well,
it's working.
It's working. Good enough. Okay. So here's the statement here. So what I want you to understand is that music therapy is just one small part of what music therapists have to offer. Music therapy is just one small part of what older adults can and should be experiencing with music in life, really, but in a long-term care setting in particular. So my business, we come in and we provide music therapy sessions, but we also do a lot more with sometimes other kinds of music groups, like leading a choir or a recreational group, a drumming group, something like that that's not therapeutic necessarily. And then Also, helping staff to integrate music into their overall care plan, into their day-to-day caregiving work. This is where I get really excited about music and memory, because I love when I can say to staff members, you know, Mary really responded to that Elvis song. We need to make sure it's on our playlist. Or I've noticed that Jerry has been a lot more quiet. You know, have you been playing music for him? How's he been responding to music, you know, when he listens to his own iPod? How has he been doing with that? Is he still enjoying it, or is he still just quiet overall? And so that way, as music therapist, I get to see these residents that I come and see once a week or twice a month even, that they have access to the music that they love all the time. And that's what I love about music and memory. And so now that we're really working with the communities that we serve in my practice to integrate music and memory, to integrate recorded music and other kinds of music activities throughout the day, throughout the week, whether we're there or not, and helping to tweak that and massage that in ways that are really helpful and most enjoyable for the residents. Can you see a different slide now?
Yes.
Okay, look at all those pictures. This is the important slide. So in my ideal world, this is me with my lens, coming from my perspective as a music therapist. In my ideal world, older adults would be able to have access to meaningful music experiences all the way to the end of life, no matter what disease process they go through, no matter what kind of dementia they have or what kind of physical impairments they have. I want them to have access to music. And there's lots of different forms that music can take. It can be listening to an iPod by themselves. It can be listening to music with another person. It could be talking with friends about music. It can be singing together, learning an instrument, playing an instrument, just sitting with somebody and listening to music together. I just want music to be part of life, and music really is life. So why is this my ideal world? I mean, why do we want to have music for people? Why is this something that we're seeing is important and central to caregiving, and not just something nice on the side if you have time? Well, when it comes to why music is something that we really want to put our focus on, it comes down to three things: the brain, your background, and being together. Okay, these are the three big reasons why music is so effective for older adults, especially people with dementia. First part's the brain. Now, without getting into a whole lot of neuroscience, and believe me, we get a lot of that in school and in our continuing education. But three interesting things about what we're learning about the brain and how our brains interpret music and experience music when we listen. One thing that we know is that the brain lights the limbic system. Music lights up the limbic system in the brain. This is the part of the brain that processes emotions and memories, and movement gets tied up in there too. So when you're playing music, you're tapping into a deeper level of the brain than the cerebral cortex, or that front top part of the brain where you do a lot of your analyzing and decision making and higher level adult kinds of decision making and that kind of thing. That's why for people who have a brain disease where their brains are decaying because of dementia, music lasts so much longer for them, because it turns on that lower part of the brain, the limbic system. We also know from research that music can trigger the release of some of these feel-good neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, and the more of those that are flooding the brain, the better people feel. So that's another reason why music can feel so good to listen to. And we also know that music can trigger certain areas in the cerebellum where you have, in your movement areas of your brain. That's why you tap your toes with music, and why you rock your body to music, and why you tap into rhythm, because that's in a very low, deep part of the brain where all of that is happening. So even as dementia processes are going on, those abilities to move to music still remain. If you think about it, I have little kids at home, and babies can start matching a beat really soon, early in life, as their brains are first starting to develop. The same is true at the end of life, that we can keep a beat way towards the end. We can still make a beat. So that's one reason why music is so important, because of what is happening in the brain. If that is interesting to you, we could talk for a long time, because there's some really fascinating research going on about the brain and music and lots of good stuff. So if you want to know more, let me know type in your question later, and I'll give you some good resources. Okay, the next reason why music is so important for older adults is because music forms a large part of our background. Music is part of our culture, our personal history. It's connected to a lot of memories. Okay, so if you think about it, you probably can't remember a time in your life without music. And if there was a time in your life with no music, it was probably for a really big reason. Music is part of all of the things that we do. When you go to a sporting event, there's music. When you go to church, there's music. When you get in the car, you turn on the radio, there's music. There's music at the beginning of life when people are singing lullabies. There's music when you're hanging out with friends as you're growing up. There's music when you're dating the love of your life and when you get married. There's music all the time. And we have different kind of music depending on our families and where we grow up. When I lived in western Kansas, I tell people that I didn't grow up with Madonna in the 80s because we didn't have a radio station out in Lake, Kansas that had Madonna on it, or at least not one that would come into our house. It was country music and the public radio station. So, it was definitely country music out in that area. Now I'm in Kansas City. I've got residents in nursing homes here that grew up urban and blues music, jazz music. Gospel music is what they grew up on. Country music doesn't resonate with them. So that's part of the culture of where you grew up, where you spent your life. It's really important. And when somebody is feeling disconnected from the people around them, music is that cue that you are in a place where we understand who you are and where you come from. So it can provide some safety that way. Now, a third big reason why music makes an impact for older adults, especially older adults with dementia, is that music brings people together. Now, as I mentioned before, music is a part of pretty much any social gathering, birthday parties, weddings, like I said before. So if you need to strengthen relationships, bringing music into that will help to strengthen a relationship. Music is just something that we do together. Now, we can do music on our own. We can put on headphones and listen by ourselves. We can sit in our car and listen to the radio. But even when you're listening to music by yourself or practicing in a practice room by yourself, you are connected to all the musicians who came before you and all the other people who have had that music or done that music or played that music with you in the past. So music is, at its very core, a communal activity. So when we're talking about older adults who are isolated, lonely, because of their disease process, because they're not living in their family home anymore, because their loved ones have died or have moved on, music is something that can help to foster community and to bring people back together. Okay, so let's talk about some benefits of integrating music throughout the day for residents and for caregivers. And I'm talking about both kinds of caregivers, both family members and friends who come into the community to see the person that they love, but also caregivers who work with residents in the nursing home. That's you, if you're listening to this webinar. That's the floor staff, activity staff, dietary, everybody, okay? Fall into that caregiver category. Now there's three big things I'm going to talk about in terms of benefits. One is that music can help to strengthen the caregiving relationship. 2, music can help to make routine caregiving tasks easier. And 3, music can change the feeling of your community in a good way. So let's break that down. In terms of strengthening the caregiving relationship, a lot of times in a senior living setting, especially, I was a direct care staff many years ago, so I was in that CNA role where I had to help people get dressed and help them to the bathroom and help them eat. And if that's what you're doing all the time, it's drudge work. I mean, it can be very tiring. It's a difficult job, and it can be all too easy to make that person that you're caring for into the other, or somebody that is just that obstacle between you and clocking out for the end of the day, right? So it's really important to have that caregiver bond between the caregiver and the care recipient, the residents and the people who are caring for them. That just makes life better for both parties. Then you know that you're caring for a person, this is a real person you really care for, and the person who's being cared for is being treated with dignity and respect, and by somebody who really cares for who they are as a person. Sometimes there are residents who it's really easy to build a relationship with them, and I bet you can think of those people in your head right now who are really easy to talk to and to share stories and things like that. Sometimes there are residents that it's a little bit harder to build that relationship. There might be a communication barrier, or they might be a little bit more reticent, or maybe they're just very different from the caregiver. Maybe there's like a 60-year age span between the caregiver and the care recipient. So here's a technique to try in terms of using music to strengthen the caregiving relationship. This is something called Take 5. I heard about this from another nursing home administrator a couple days ago, and so maybe it's something you already know about, but I really like this idea, where you expect all of your caregivers to take 5 minutes a day to sit down with somebody and get to know them a little bit better, to get to know a resident a little bit better. Well, sometimes you can sit down with somebody and have a conversation easy, and sometimes it's a little bit harder. So here's an idea. You can use those 5 minutes to get out an iPod and head 2 sets of headphones with a headphone splitter or a Bluetooth speaker and listen to a song. Most songs are about, 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes long. So you listen to a song, gives you a little bit to talk about, then you know that person a little bit better and you've shared some music with them. So that's a technique to try. The community that I was talking to is going to have a little contest to see how many of their staff could get to know the residents better musically and add to their playlists by doing this Take 5 experience. Okay, another one here is this idea of making routine caregiving tasks easier. And by this I mean bathing and dressing and helping them eat and helping them walk down the hallway. This is a whole topic all on its own on how to help residents with their ADLs using music and how music can make that easier. But here's just one simple thing to try and to encourage your staff to try, and that is singing. Okay? So I was talking with an administrator a couple days ago. He was telling me about a particular caregiver who sings her residents to supper, and that's how she gets them to go. That's how she gets them moving. Now, from what we know about music and how it triggers the areas of the brain involved in movement and all that, that makes sense, right? That music can help to get somebody moving. So encourage your caregivers to sing. Don't have to worry about your voice because nobody's going to record it and send it to American Idol. In fact, they are no longer on the air, so there's no danger of that. So all you do is you sing, you move along with them, and see how it goes. Okay, so that's something to try. Now, in terms of changing the feeling of your community, sometimes this is challenging to have an environment that is calm and welcoming and that feels like home. And sometimes you have limited control over who's coming in and out and what kinds of noises are happening and that sort of thing. So something to experiment using the tools that you have now with your music and memory program is you can experiment with setting up music listening stations in various places at various times of day. So what you can do is, instead of having one big group with 30 residents and playing music really loud, and there might be 30 people there and 27 of them have kind of checked out, why don't you try having 5 or 6 residents at a table or in a sitting area, Bluetooth speaker, an iPod, and you're playing some songs for them, and checking down which ones people like, which ones they don't like, but just having a few quiet, smaller groups playing music versus party one area and then otherwise people have to be by themselves in their rooms. That might be another way to shift the energy, to shift the feeling in the community to one that's more relationship-oriented and more small group-oriented. Something to try. Okay? Okay. Now, Barbara also asked me to share some tips for selecting music. So I know that you get a really good assessment from Music and Memory when you go through that training. So I just want to emphasize that's good stuff. Okay, so here's me as a music therapist telling you, use that because it's really good to ask those questions and start building playlists that way. So you want to emphasize personalized biographical music instead of only playing Elvis or only playing country or making assumptions about what people are going to like based on their age or based on where they live. So use those assessments, figure out a way to ask family members if the resident can't tell you about some of those important songs so that you can put together a playlist that's really meaningful to that individual resident. I want to make sure you know that even with those biographical songs, in fact, probably particularly with those biographical songs, some songs might be upsetting when they're listening alone. So think, for example, about the song that was played on your wedding day. If you're listening to your iPod in your room by yourself and that song comes up and it reminds you of your husband who has now been dead for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you're experiencing this loneliness and this grief over this person that you lost. Those can be really difficult feelings to experience alone, right? I mean, we don't want our residents to be in that place of grief and sadness when there's not people to support them. So that's a good reason to not to just put headphones on somebody and walk away. You want to be in the area while they're listening to music. You want to be with them and interacting with them as much as possible to make sure that if a particular song triggers something on a particular day, that they're not there experiencing that feeling alone. Okay? Another idea in terms of selecting music is to use those small group listening sessions to test out songs that residents might enjoy. So like I said, you can put together a playlist, have 5 or 6 residents, and listen to different songs, and then just check on the list who likes it, who doesn't like it, and that's a way that you can build up their playlists. You can even use volunteers to run these music listening sessions. High schoolers are great at this. Young adults, a lot of people, when they volunteer, they just want something particular to do. So here's something very particular for them to do. That can be very meaningful. So that's another good way to build your playlist for your residents, and then also to have some interaction with the community, some music listening. And then I wanted to remind you that you can feel free to add and subtract music from the playlist as needed. So if there are songs that somebody says they like, but then it's upsetting to them every time it comes up, it's okay to take that off their playlist. Or if you have this playlist and you have, if the daughter has said so-and-so only likes show tunes, but she's in a group and this, Hey Good Looking comes on and she's really tapping her toes and singing to that one, it's okay to add that to the playlist. Okay, so these playlists, you want them to be kind of, what would we call it, like a living document where there's things changing all the time, and that's okay. That's the good thing about having iPods versus having CDs is that you don't have to burn a whole new CD for that. Okay. All right. Just a couple more tips here. 4 more things here. Big tip to help with the sustainability of your music and memory program and to help with any kind of music program is to recognize caregivers who are involving residents in music, people who are doing a good job of that. So I'll tell you, in my company, we've started doing a quarterly Creative Caregiver Award, is what we're calling this. And there's actually a tab on my website you can see who we've awarded before. So we give an award to usually a direct caregiver, a CNA or a chaplain or a nurse who is really great about getting people involved in music, or who is that person that sings them down the hallway, or who's always the first person to say, you know, I bet she'd like to have her iPod right now. We give them that award, and it's a big deal. It's something that can go on their resume, is what one of our award recipients said. And it's a way to say, you know, it's important that we're involving music in our residents' lives, and we want to recognize you for doing a good job of that. So that's one idea. As I said before, you want to emphasize relationships over solo listening. So I would encourage you to encourage the folks in your communities to use music in a relational way as much as possible, rather than just popping on the headphones and walking away. Okay? Now, I understand that people have their responsibilities and that you can't be sitting next to somebody listening to music all day long. But there are opportunities. There's always opportunities for that. So emphasizing that the relationships are really valuable is important. In fact, I heard from a music therapist recently who's just completed a pilot study looking at music listening, either music listening alone or music listening with another person. And I'm going to get the details wrong. But one of their key findings was that people, when you give them recorded music, that there would be this increased alertness. But that increased alertness would go away if their need for engagement wasn't met. So they would perk up and want to interact with people around them, but if there's no one there to interact with, then they'd go right back to sleep. Pretty much is what that means. So that's a reason to try to get in as much relationship, try to get in as much attention as you can related to that music. Okay, one more important tip is to make sure you watch for overstimulation. For people with dementia, sometimes overstimulation looks like agitation. You know, people trying to get out the hallway or trying to get out the front door, yelling, hitting, that kind of thing. Sometimes that's overstimulation. Overstimulation results in that kind of behavior. Sometimes overstimulation results in somebody shutting down and closing their eyes and folding up and turning away from people because everything around them is just too much. Okay? So you want to watch for both kinds of overstimulation and make sure that you are not contributing to it or that the music isn't contributing to it. This was a lesson I learned the hard way as a new music therapist. I had a client who had advanced dementia, and sometimes he would kind of wake up when I played guitar and sang for him, and sometimes he just was asleep in bed. So one day I brought in my oboe, which is kind of a loud and piercing instrument, and I played my oboe for him a little bit, and he woke up, but he didn't look, it looked a little bit painful for him. And so I stopped immediately and never did that again. But that is something to be aware of, that music is great and music can have a lot of benefits, but you have to make sure not to overdo it, right? Okay. All right, fourth tip comes from several music therapists that I interviewed when I was learning about music and memory and how music therapists are working with that. And that is to make sure that the music is actually playing when you give somebody an iPod. I heard from a surprising number of people that, you know, caregivers would put the headphones on and push play and give it to the resident, but then there wouldn't actually be music coming out of the headphones. So that's a simple tip to make sure that it's actually working. All right. So we're going to have plenty of time here for questions and for you to bring up anything that I can help with, as well as Stephanie and Barbara. But I wanted to tell you about a couple of resources that I have to offer. I have a newsletter through my company that offers a lot of tips and ideas and songs related to music and caregiving. It's a free newsletter. You get about once a month. and you can sign up for it at the link there, soundscapingsource.com/goodstuff. You'll also get a link to the top 5 articles I've written on music and dementia caregiving. So if the information I've been going over is helpful for you and you'd like more, you'd like to have it in a written format, then you'll want to go there and sign up for the newsletter and get those articles. Also, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be presenting a webinar for Leading Age Kansas on June 23rd strictly about how to make caregiving tasks easier with music. So this is all about how to use music to help with ADLs. So if that's a topic that is interesting to you or that your staff would be interested in, then you can sign up for that through Leading Age Kansas, whether or not you are a member. It's just a difference in cost as far as I know. They don't have the registration link up for that yet, but it should be available very soon. And then finally, if all of this music stuff is very intriguing and you would love to have some more input from a music therapist, like I said, I'm in the Kansas City area, but I am available for some consultation help to help you with recruiting volunteers and using your entertainers and all of those folks well. So if you would like more help with developing the music programs, integrating music and memory with your other music programs into your community, then I invite you to apply for a strategy session with me. You can have a, just for you all who are attending this webinar, I've got 5 of these that I can schedule a free 30-minute strategy session. We'll set up a phone call, get on the phone, talk a little bit about what's going on in your community, and give you some tips for how to make things a little bit better. All right? So that is what I have. So we'll open it up for questions. I'll let Barbara say how that works.
Well, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. I really liked your tips and really liked that Take 5 one. I think is probably my favorite, but it's really great and very kind of you and generous to offer those strategy sessions for some of our folks. We'll take questions again as usual any way you want to ask them. So in the chat box, in the question box, raise your hand on your panel, and we'll unmute you and give you an opportunity then to just speak with either myself or Rachel or Stephanie from Music and Memory. We do have a couple of questions already out on the question box, and a couple of those are about the grant and some of the details on that. So one of them is a facility that's asking about being able to get into that Care Communities website, still having some sort of problems with that, and I'll work on that. Maybe Stephanie and I can kind of make sure that we're getting you in the Care Communities website. There should have been an email that came out that you got where you would have been able to set up your own a password to be able to get in, and then the ability to invite other folks from your community to join the Care Communities website as well. But if there's others besides Attica who's sent me the question, please let me know. We'll make sure we get you in.
And Barbara, I can add to that as well. For whatever reason, I'm not able to type into the little questions space here, but if anyone's having a problem getting into the Care Community, you can email carequestions@musicandmemory.org. Any problems that you're having with the Care Community, you can email that email address and get a quick response from Music and Memory.
And that was Care Communities.
Care Questions.
Care Questions.
Care Questions @musicandmemory.org. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, that's very good to know.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. So do we have any other questions for any of us? Myself, anything about the grant? Stephanie, anything about Music and Memory that she can answer? Or Rachel about her presentation, which really am very grateful for today. Thank you so much.
Phenomenal. Mm-hmm.
Fabulous presentation. So we're happy to spend a couple of more minutes. We've got about 4 or 5 more minutes left on our time together, so no question is is not appreciated. We very much appreciate the opportunity to answer some questions that you might have. Or any comments that you have about your project and how it's going, anything at all.
How long do you think, so they're going to get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation?
Correct. They will. Let me go a couple of things that I might share. Let me make myself the presenter again and show my screen. So let me postpone that. So a couple of things just to show. We do make those webinars available. I can move my screen over here. And they are, we send those out as an email, a link in an email, but we're also posting them on our website. So anybody has seen our website, this is it. And under helpful resources, we have a page dedicated to music and memory right on top. And you'll see kind of the page here, and then at the bottom, there's a link for webinars. If you click on that link, you'll see our first 2 webinars, the introduction and preparing for music and memory, and then getting started, which was last month's webinar. There are a couple of different presentations there, but the recording is here, where it says here, and then links to the handouts and any other, the presentations themselves, the PowerPoint. So those will be available, as will this one. As soon as I get it up. So probably in a week or 10 days. The holiday, it'll probably be a few extra days to get that up.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So another thing I'd make sure you all know is next month, these are a monthly webinar, always the 4th Tuesday of each month. We will have Michael Preston from Preston Pharmacies on. He's going to be talking about reducing antipsychotics appropriately, and that'll be really a great opportunity. And I'll also remind you that anybody in your facility can participate in these webinars, and so if there may be some additional staff that you want on any webinar based on the topic, please have as many people as you wish, or you can get around the screen to watch. So maybe you might want to make sure that your nursing staff is aware of who our presenter is next month. I want to, again, let you know if you got questions, you can always contact me. Our website I just showed you. Also on our website, how to locate your regional ombudsman, who you can also contact and ask questions, and then Music and Memory's website as well. So anytime you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to somebody, or if you need additional support. We all are here to help. Again, don't see any other questions. So we'll maybe close our webinar. I want to thank Rachel and Stephanie for being with us today. Thank you so much. Rachel, for your great presentation. I really very much appreciate it. That was great information, great tips, very solid information that people can put to use, which is always a great thing to have in a presentation, right? So thank you. And thanks to all of our attendees. I hope that Music and Memory is going well in your building, and again, thank you for bringing the gift of music to the residents in your home. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you, if not before, next month on the webinar.